welcome to this episode of Point Counterpoint. We are once again back with an issue which is very concerning and which is very troublesome too. We are speaking of an increasing number of domestic violence cases in Goa, but the fact of the matter is that itself is not the problem. The problem is that Goa seems to have failed its people by not providing a proper ecosystem and an environment of safety and comfort to victims of domestic violence who somehow are absolutely hapless and helpless and unable to access facilities that the system is supposed to provide for them. Domestic violence can only come down in any civilized state and country if there is a deterrent. And the problem with Goa is that these deterrents seem to be evaporating by the day and by the hour, where there is a basic feeling amongst victims that irrespective of whatever happens, we have a very long road ahead towards justice, and whether the justice process is going to begin or not itself is a matter of grave doubt. At the same time, the system, which specifically includes the police and other allied people, professionals who are supposed to aid and abet the police in carrying out its duty in handling domestic violence cases, the system itself seems to be geared towards A, not picking up these cases, B, ensuring that these cases are nipped in the bud, and C, looking at them basically as problems, not problems to the women, but problems to their time and their freedom and so on and so forth. And that is where the problem lies. The question that can well be asked is, why are we speaking about this now? Has there been a huge surge in cases? The point here is, one doesn't need a huge surge at any point of time. It's not like a volcano waiting to erupt. It is actually a very, it's not even a dormant volcano. It's an active volcano which simmers in all the time. But probably one trigger which has brought us all here to discuss this in this kind of a manner is a recent incident that happened in early November, November 8th to be precise, in Moscow, in the just outside the town. The problem here is that there was an incident where a pregnant woman and her mother were literally burnt alive, ostensibly or purportedly initially due to a gas cylinder explosion, which was later whittled down to a vapor gas explosion. But the long and the short of it is that there were large discrepancies in the investigation, and there was a tampering of the scene of crime, which was very, very evident. Secondly, important artifacts and important objects such as the cell phones and others were not even seized as part of the Panchnama. So hence there were a lot of pointers to the fact that the investigation was completely botched up. After that, the family of the deceased women, the brother of the younger girl, went to the extent of filing a report with the SDM, openly alleging that this was not an ordinary gas cylinder blast. It was a pre-planned case of murder related to dowry demands by his brother-in-law and the woman's husband, who happens to be a naval person. In spite of all this, as we speak today, there's no FIR that has been lodged against the person who's been accused of committing the murder. Of course, investigations are still on. The point here is that irrespective of which way the whole issue flows, we are seeing that there are a lot of major acts of violence and deaths that are happening, which seem to be just normal accidents, which ultimately turn out to be domestic violence cases. So we'll discuss all this and more, and we'll delve into it in a big way. But before we do that, let's hear a short clip, a short video of Shubham Chauhan, who is the brother of the girl who passed away.
9 बजे ऐसा या तो वो
आपने आपके कंप्लेंट जो देने वाले हैं ना आज, उसमें किसको नेम किया है? हु हैव यू नेम्ड एज द मेन अक्यूज्ड इन दैट मैटर?
एक्यूज्ड तो जो मैंने नेम किया है वो अनुराग ही है। अनुराग और उसकी मदर जो है वो उसको डाउरी के लिए परेशान कर रही थी, बट जो मर्डर है वो उसके कहने पे, अनुराग की मदर के कहने पे अनुराग ने प्लान करके किया, क्योंकि वो अपनी माँ की सारी बातें मानता था। वो मेरी बहन ने बताया ना पहले भी कई बार कि वो फ़ोन करता था उसको, खाने की चीज़ों के लिए भी वो उसको पूछता था कि लाना है या नहीं लाना, तो ये भी सारी सजेशन जो हैं उसकी माँ ने उसको दिए, जितना मुझे लगता है।
So you thinking it is a foul play?
हाँ,
So we'll start this discussion. We'll use this as a hook for the discussion, but look into other aspects. I'll just introduce the panel. I have Arun Pandey, who of course needs no introduction, founder and the head of the ARZ organization, which has done a lot of work on trafficking, but the connections with domestic violence will obviously be there. Advocate Caroline Colasso is a very senior and established human rights lawyer, and also of course handles and deals with a lot of domestic violence cases. And SABINA Martins again needs no introduction, of Bailancho Court and Bailancho Saad, sorry, and somebody who has been a veteran in this entire issue. Of course, she has also been with the earlier with the State Commission for Women and understands this subject much better than most of us. So I'll start with SABINA and then go this way. SABINA, if you can just start with the basic issues raised by this particular man. And we are not doing an investigation into this case as such, but just looking at it as a trigger for our discussion. And so I don't have a specific question, but if you could quickly respond to some of the points that we placed.
Yeah, talking about domestic violence is very much prevalent in society, Goan society, and in Goa we have people of Goa, and domestic violence is very prevalent. Now, in this case, because the person is from outside the state, one looks like, you know, this cylinder blast and these things happen only North India, and it doesn't happen in Goa. Oh, they are from outside the state, and but in Goa also we have very what you call it, acute cases of domestic violence. Like you have hot iron being put, hot water being put, then hitting with the koita, cutting the leg, and you know, brutal assault. And people look at it only when it is brutal, but there is also like mental torture, constant abuses, not allowing the woman to go to her parents' house, then depriving children of food so that you know, to trouble the woman, not allowing her to go to work, putting pressure on the way she dresses, and I mean lots of issues which you know, finally triggers this domestic violence. So it's very much prevalent. And so one, I would say it's prevalent. The second issue which comes over here is looks like there was no prevention, and that is an issue which we need to focus on more. How do we prevent, and what are the mechanisms to prevent domestic violence from happening? So here in this case there was no prevention. If the woman was suffering or had problems, who did she go to? She only spoke to her family. Did she have any support in this area in Vasco, or where this incident happened?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And then the one is the prevention aspect of it, and this next is what action has been taken when a crime has been committed.
Right.
Did the family get support? Did the investigation happen in a proper manner? Did it require media and organizations and other people to see that you know, investigation gets done? Because if the marriage is less than 7 years, it has to be investigated by the SDM. So all this is only when there is public pressure that it goes in the direction that, okay, investigate for domestic violence. Otherwise they just register it as accidental death, unnatural death, and close the matter.
Correct. Karna, you deal with a lot of these cases that come up. Don't you think that the figures put out as far as the annual data of domestic violence is concerned. In 2022, we had this figure of 189 propping up. Now that seems absolutely ridiculous. I'm sure there are many more cases. And on top of that, what was shocking is that the Women and Child Development released a statement after that saying that not even 5% of these cases are genuine. It's a WCD statement, where the government itself, a government department turns around and says that most of these cases are not genuine, they are just completely made up and hence we don't take it. So if you could just throw a little light on this.
So of course, as you rightly said, this is clearly 189 is not only a tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Because I do not know from where they get the statistics. They would be only the ones perhaps that reach the, ultimately reach the court, or perhaps which are going on. But as SABINA was rightly saying, I mean, the first and foremost, if a woman does go to the police station, it will only be after a series of, like really unbearable, where it reaches that point that she go to the police station. And even when she goes to the police station, the police would register what is called an NC case, or a non-cognizable case. So a slap, or even unless it causes actual dislocation or a fracture, or it would be considered grievous, only then it would become a cognizable offence for the police to consider it an offence and register an FIR. And knowing how the patriarchal society works and still continues to work, sadly, it's like when a woman goes there to the police station, it is still, the thing is, it's a family matter, try to sort it out. So therefore, a large number of women are turned away, or if in case she insists, it become an NC case, and that's the end of story for an NC case. Because an NC case, the police have no powers to investigate, they would have to take permission of the court. So it rests there, and the woman says, I filed a complaint, now what more do I do? I mean, she's not given the next
But at
backup.
what stage do lawyers like you come in? I mean, you all will obviously come in if a woman has been courageous enough to approach a senior lawyer like you independently.
Yes.
And you take up the case independently, and then you fight.
Yes.
But very few women would be able to actually even come to you to.
Yes, obviously. I
approach
mean,
you to do this.
I'm not the only lawyer.
Yeah.
This is
No, I understand, but
word
what
of
I'm saying
mouth
is-
that, that
Correct.
the ones who's,
Correct.
A, they like to come to a woman lawyer, and secondly, they
sure.
hopefully
Correct.
think that we are sensitive enough
Correct.
because of our past, that they would want
Yeah,
to
but there
do
would
it.
be one small section of women who would have the wherewithal, the courage and other
course.
things to come to lawyers like
That's
you.
where the whole block
Yes.
is, no? Like when it shouldn't have been. It's Taluka. I'm seated in Mapsa. Where do
Right.
people from Valpo and
Right.
Bicholi and Perne and all find the wherewithal to come
Right.
to a lawyer? And again, they don't always know
Correct.
that the lawyer is free, not free. I mean, we do, most of them are pro bono, but that
Right.
is on my discretion to do. So
Right.
therefore, it would mean the functioning, first of all, of the block development officer, who's the protection officer. Why isn't he a full-time officer at the Taluka
Yes,
level?
sir. That's
What
another
has
very
happened to
important
the legal aid forums and the free legal aid, who should have been out there telling
Right.
them you don't need to pay for a lawyer, the state pays for a lawyer.
Right.
So that would give them the courage then to go ahead and file these things.
Right.
But right at the initial stage itself,
Right.
if they are not being given the backup to file, the
Right.
second is as say all these systems, and being told that yes, even if you want to leave the house, there is a halfway home, or you don't want to leave the house but you just want the husband to be counseled, there is a counselor. But if all this backup is not there, then it's a complete failure of the system.
Arunji, before I come to you, I mean, I'm coming to you anyway. If you recall, and SABINA will also recall this, I think about a decade ago, there was a DGP called Mr. T.N. Mohan. Now, T.N. Mohan had released a protocol for women and children on the International Day for the elimination of violence against women.
We had worked on that protocol.
Exactly,
yeah.
correct. I was just coming to it. You all had worked on the protocol, and it was worked on by Bailancho, Saad and some other NGOs
organizations.
and other organizations, and it was accepted. And the DGP that time, he had said, we have released the police protocol, and he actually said, in case a woman makes the complaint and stands by it, the complaint will be registered. And he had said that he had laid down a detailed protocol on what needs to be done. He also said that we have sanctioned 300 lady police officers, of whom 80 will be PSIs. They will be posted in each and every section. So all these seem like dream declarations. But ultimately, Arunji, what has been your experience?
Implementation.
See, if we go to see that, as you are saying, and if I see that India is one of the best place where we have one of the best legislations, okay, and like the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act, okay, you have various provision in IPC. You have best scheme like one-stop crisis center, as you're talking about this protocol. So if you talk about schemes, legislations, we have that.
Right.
Unfortunately, the problem comes of implementation. Now, when we talk about this domestic violence, unfortunately, this term domestic has caused the most harm. Okay, because everybody considers a domestic issue. In fact, starting from the victim itself.
Right.
So the victim, even if she is being physically, verbally, sexually, financially being exploited at home, she keeps on tolerating it, thinking that is a domestic issue. It has to be sorted out there. Okay, because she knows that when she goes out, okay, it will be termed as a domestic. क्यों नहीं घर का मामला घर में सलटाते हो? Okay. So this starts with that. She only as a last way of the survival. Okay, she goes out. When she goes out, we find it most of the time the family discourages. The worst is not only family, when she goes to the law enforcement agencies, okay, they discourage. Though the law is very clear, in fact, if you say the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act, it has provided various good provision and also provided for protection officer. And no more, the police has a very important role to play. It was felt that the police, because of the type of selection and training, may not be sensitive. But see the situation in Goa. You find is that BDO, who is the revenue officer, has been appointed as a protection officer. The protection officer has a major role to play, starting from listening to the victim, providing protection, providing shelter, providing immediate relief, filling up the form, okay, everything. Now the protection officer works from 10 to 6.
Right.
Most of the time he is not available in the office.
Evening.
There is no space in his office to sit and listen. Neither is trained. The act says that the protection officer has to be female. How many BDOs are females? Okay, and so that is when there is no privacy in his office to listen. So in fact, what has happened is that I think the police station would have been a better place for the victim to go approach and ask for relief. Okay, because they are a lady police officer, infrastructure is there, then coming to
or a designated special area.
Okay, so what is happening here is that unfortunately we are not paying attention to this issue because we are seeing it as a domestic issue.
Right.
What we further want to add is like we get 1 or 2 cases every day related to domestic, and we are finding, as SABINA was saying, is that from different caste, class, region, literate, illiterate, housewife, working women, and everybody facing similar issue. Recently on 23rd, we had a meeting wherein we called State Legal Service Authority, Protection Officer, and various women came and gave testimony. Most of them, they said is that we have become like a football. We did a mistake by asking for justice for the violence committed against us. उनका ये कहना था हम फुटबॉल की तरह हो गए. पुलिस के पास गए, पुलिस ने बोला प्रोटेक्शन ऑफिसर के पास जाओ, प्रोटेक्शन ऑफिसर के पास गए, उसने बोला वन स्टॉप क्राइसिस सेंटर जाओ, वन स्टॉप क्राइसिस सेंटर ने बोला नहीं तुम कोर्ट में जाओ, फिर वो जो लीगल एड लॉयर का. सो लाइक ए फुटबॉल वी आर कीप ऑन गोइंग वन प्लेस टू अदर प्लेस विदाउट एनी सेंस ऑफ गेटिंग जस्टिस.
This one-stop crisis center, can you throw some light on it? On what is it? Where does it exist? Have we seen it with our own eyes?
See, I think one-stop crisis center is a very good idea. It is a central government scheme. In 2015, this scheme came. And it was envisaged that women who are victim of violence go to one place,
right,
instead of going to different agency and asking for help. Like suppose a person has been assaulted, has to go to police, then police will send for medical, from medical then shelter, and then counseling. So one-stop crisis center is a place supported by central government, sponsored by central government, wherein there is as per the scheme, police will be there, the DHS, the health services will depute there a compounder or a doctor, there will be ambulance, there will be NGO, we will provide counseling, there will be a shelter home, everything at one place. But unfortunately, we find is that in Goa, the way the scheme has been planned and designed, that is not being implemented. Now, what is happening is that it is unfortunately being run by NGOs. Why I say NGOs, I am not against NGOs, but if the government would have been running, it would have got more resources.
Correct.
Also participation, like in other places, it is being run by the government, wherein the collector and the SP are the part of the management committee.
Right.
So imagine a scheme which is being implemented under the direct supervision of collector and SP would have more impact than a NGO running. We know some NGOs are running. They are running. They are unable to manage. Okay, the kind of requests are coming to them.
Right.
Also at the district level.
Right.
Okay, we find is that I come from Marbugao. Most of the victims, they complain they are unable to get services from one-stop crisis center, and when we approach, they say they don't have vehicles, they don't have human resource,
Correct.
they can't keep them, provide them shelter.
Right.
Okay, all
Right.
these issues
Can I
are there.
just one stop, I'll complete it.
Yeah,
2 minutes.
that's great.
Can I see what's one stop center, crisis center that Arunji is saying? Have you all seen it in existence anywhere in Goa? Have you experienced this one stop crisis center anywhere?
I have gone there
Yeah.
once to the North Goa one,
Yeah.
which is at the Goa. I have not been to the South, but it's like whenever we've used it, as you said, just because we know the person heading it, like we have been able to make some headway or get some help. But that's not how it's supposed to function.
But is it really one stop?
It is not one stop from what we have seen,
Right.
and at least from what experiences, as he says, people who have gone there.
Right.
They don't have halfway homes. They don't have. I mean, I do not know whether they have trained counselors. So it's still, again, as you said, the women would be like football, running from place to place. Just like how, in fact, like I can understand that one-stop crisis center was just like how the PWDWA, the Act was. If whenever we celebrated 1 year of the Act, we celebrated the fact that it was called single window system. Now under this act also, you're supposed to get protection, you're supposed to get counseling, you're supposed to have halfway homes, and you're supposed to have the court the access through the protection officer. So it was called that you don't have to go to the court separately and find a shelter home. It was called like a one-stop crisis center, one-stop act, if that's what you would like to call it. But again, if there is no backup, I think Goa is the only state in the entire country which did not put a single naya paisa as a backup towards the act when the act was promulgated.
No money was put in.
No money was put up. And they're supposed to, even for hoardings, even to advertise it, even to have a whole lot of things. But if there are no counselors, there is no halfway home. Some of the existing I think convents, etc., which were running some halfway homes, took on the additional job, but they said for 2 years the government didn't pay us money. Then back to square one, they just said we are not part of the scheme.
See, one point that Arun raised was very important. It's just that ultimately the government has to take direct responsibility in dealing with the situation.
Exactly.
You have to believe it.
Believe it, correct. NGOs can only be enablers.
Yes.
But the NGOs cannot take over the complete system in the absence of any finances. And as he was saying, ultimately the collector and the SP. Now the issue is, who is the nodal agency? Ultimately the nodal agency should be the person who's heading the district.
Yeah.
In any big state, the district magistrate deals with all this. Now here we do not know whether it is a WCD's mandate or whether it is the police's mandate or whether there is any interaction between.
There's no coordination.
There's no coordination. Also, see, Sabina, you are making a point, but I'll just add one more question and then you can address both together. See, the thing is, now if we look at this Vasco cylinder case, now don't you think that if the lady in question or even her mother knew that there is an existing ecosystem for them to go to, and if they went to the protection officer or somebody and say, look, at the end of the day, I'm facing this problem. I'm getting dowry demands all the time. There are these pressures being enacted. Then obviously the system could have reacted and at least warned the husband or taken some kind of action, so and so, so that it wouldn't have led to a death situation like this.
Yeah. See, basically we need prevention measures. Like just to give an example, like Bailancho Saad had started a campaign in that no violence in the village. So we went door to door with a pamphlet saying that no one should beat the women in the house. Just 1 point program. And the people said, we carried out sincerely, no, we don't beat her, we treat our women well. That house beats, that woman is thrown out. And you knew in this one ward, how many women are being beaten up. Okay, how many cases of alcoholism are there and women are suffering. So here there is if you are serious, you should have a program where you address every family, know what is the issue. You're talking about statistics. Now, as Caroline said, all the cases get registered as that 189 is just a small number. They are just FIR. But the NC complaints, non-cognizable offences, are in thousands. When I was in the commission, we had done a study of non-cognizable cases, cognizance of non-cognizance. There was something like 8,000 cases, NC complaints, and the FIRs that were registered were 2-digit figures. So you just see the discrepancy, and that's the time we lobbied and got the women police station. So see, from the grassroots, we are getting data, we are putting it to the government, we got the women police station, but no staff. So struggle for staff. Now the even now if you go, there is a lack of staff. So when people go, we say go to the women police station. This was meant you know, for you,
Right.
but you don't get the service because there is lack of staff. Now then the woman feels like, as we were saying, that we are like a football, we are going here, we are going there, we are going there,
Right.
and the attitude is not helpful, you know,
Right,
like
right.
whether you go to the police station and State Commission for Women. I was part of the State Commission for Women. I know when the commission is in place and you have a system, women will come because there's a confidence. Now for 1 year there was no chairperson. So instead of giving, you know, helping women, we are now trying to help the commission get a chairperson. After so long, we got a chairperson. In the interim period, there are hundreds of cases in the commission, and they don't have the resources to deal with them now. So it's not just, you know, appointing a chairperson. Then the committee has to be in place. Resources have to be there. There has to be a budget allocation, and the commission also has other role, like, you know, policy matters. How do we address these issues? Now, in these last years, I mean, I think before COVID, maybe there was a meeting. All these organizations who are working on domestic violence, there's no meeting. So there is no forum to express. Every news, we are having meetings, giving it in the newspapers, sending letters here to the authorities. No response. Just before elections, all the organizations got together. We had drawn up demands to all the parties, saying that we want a center at every taluka which addresses, and the same demand. Now ARUN had a meeting, same demands are being repeated. So we are only repeating demands, we are not getting any response from the government. Okay, and so like police station, we managed to get, we used to have meeting every 2 months with the police. All the PIs of the police stations used to come, organizations used to come, commission, State Women Commission, then we had counseling center, forensic department, all the stakeholders. We would have a meeting and we would discuss what are the issues, and so appropriate steps were taken. Now that meeting has not taken place. We are writing letters to the DGP, the file goes down, then say SP crime will have. Now by the time it came to the women police station, now that PI has been transferred, now another one has come, and no meeting has taken place. No, let this event get over. Now there is a G20, then there is something else happening, national games and something. So there has been no meeting of the stakeholders to discuss crimes against women. So it is always pushed back, it's on the back burner, and so the issues don't get addressed.
Right. Then, I have just one larger question. Goa being quote unquote a literate state, an educated state, a forward-looking state, and so on and so forth. According to you, having worked in this field for such a long time, could you pinpoint the reasons why domestic violence cases are increasing in Goa in this kind of a manner? Because Goan society isn't supposed to be like this. Let's put it this way. What could be the fundamental reasons? Is it, I mean, is there something intrinsic to Goa which is leading to it? Alcohol abuse can be also one of the reasons which we can point out. But larger, if you look at our society as a whole, we are not supposed to be a society which lends itself to these kind of issues.
It's a patriarchal society,
Yeah.
nevertheless,
Yes,
you understand.
okay, right.
And things are not changing at the rate at what we would want them to
It's getting
change.
worse with the economic policies, no? Sorry for interrupting, but
No, sure.
like we celebrated AIDS Day
Right.
on 1st. There is, we had so many women coming to us looking for shelter. There is domestic violence in the house. There's discrimination because people who are affected. There's not a home for people with,
Suffering from HIV.
alcoholism. Now we are getting so much of revenue from alcohol.
Correct.
It's being promoted. Now gambling has started, casino. People are addicted. There is domestic violence, and these factors have caused more cases of violence in the
As I
house.
was saying that we get 2 to 3 cases every day.
Yeah.
And if you see these cases, a majority of the cases are coming extramarital relationship,
Yeah.
gambling, addiction, mental health issues in the, in the family. So all these issues are there,
Contributing.
and we find is that there is no redressal happening. Now, over that we find that adultery has been removed from our legislation. Okay, so it is adding to that. So there are these common issues which you find in other states. Okay, and so it's not that there is no statistics. Okay, if you go to see the National Family Survey of India in 2021 has said 20%, and 20% is a huge
20%
number.
is what?
20% of women suffer from domestic violence in Goa. Means among every 5 women, one woman is suffering.
Right.
Okay, and what
Right.
is important
Yeah.
is that the state should take it seriously.
It's
and
a National
conduct
Family Survey report.
National
Yeah.
Family Survey of India is the Government of India
Government
survey.
report.
Yeah, this is
Government
which year
report
are you talking of?
21.
21.
2021.
Right, right.
Okay, and about Goa.
Correct.
About Goa is 20%.
Right, right.
It's not a national
Right,
percentage.
right.
So Goa is, so 20% is a huge number. And what is important is that we need to either based on this number and a planned policy, you can't have a part-time protection officer if the problem is 20%.
Yeah.
The other what I want to highlight is not that the government is not investing resources, but what is happening is that these agencies are not coordinating among themselves. Now you have women in police station, they are also taking domestic violence cases.
Right.
You have BDO, they are also taking. You have OneStop Crisis Center, they are also taking. You have court, they are also taking. But there is not a coordinated effort among them itself.
Correct.
To work together.
And there's no
Yeah, no, yeah,
analysis,
yeah,
Sujay,
yeah,
of
yeah,
the,
yeah.
like what I'm saying is now, for example, they tend to look at a lot of the issues which we are facing in isolation. You look at the number of suicides. Like, so when you just say take suicides, is anyone analyzing those suicides?
That's correct.
Is
That's
anyone checking? Is there a large number of women? And among those women, are they women within few years of marriage? Years ago, maybe more than 10 years ago, I had asked for the statistics of suicide, and I sat down and broke down and because if you look at the police reason, they will give you so and so and the reason for the suicide, fed up of life.
You're
Is
right.
that police kind of analysis?
Right.
We don't expect them to do it, or they will just inevitably the first question, boyfriend affair or affair, love affair. So, but that is not the issue that so you look at statistics, find out why for a state like Goa, as you said, every time we number 1 state getting all the awards the government gets, but yet if you have there's something very wrong there. Then you look at mental health. I am told that per day new admissions at the IPHB and they're opening up a new wing is something like 30 to 40 per.
The new admissions.
New
huh?
admissions are 40 per day. Now, if I'm saying 40 people, check them out. I'm not. I don't know the percentage of men and women,
Yeah.
but I know that the cases that come to me, largely a lot of the women are already coming with depression.
Right.
And the depression is because of these years of harassment and mental torture and domestic
violence.
leading to, and then they are labeled as mental, and then the husband has got a good ground for divorce. So, who's doing this analysis? Who's looking? I asked somebody, in fact, yesterday my junior went to register some kind of a case, and I'm told the court clerk told her, I hope it's not another divorce. We've already reached 200 for the year for 2023.
This is only in Mapsa.
Only in Mapsa.
Huh.
So, and there was a report about a year ago where the chief minister sadly said, oh, the number of divorces are increasing and it's very worrying, and therefore we have to have some premarital counseling and all that kind of thing. That was the end of story. We didn't hear anything more.
Right.
So, why are there so many divorces?
Right.
Is it linked to domestic violence? You cannot bear the violence. Is nothing more happening, and hence, so these kind of analysis should have been done by say, the
Correct.
Goa State Commission for Women,
Very important.
or somebody.
Because suicide cases, divorce
Yeah.
cases, they should all be looked
Linked.
holistically.
They're
And
linked.
look at the Burns ward. Go to GMC, you will get all the records of violence over there. You know,
Right, right.
whether it is
So
burns,
even-
whether it's
even for
assault,
this,
broken bones, you will find those issues
This
there.
case of Vasco, for example.
Yes.
Again, if they start with the premise,
Right.
or they start with the disbelief, like I said, with the women and child department, oh, these are false cases. If that's your thinking, where does a woman stand?
Right.
Because if
Yeah.
police don't believe her, the department is supposed to protect her, says they're false cases. where do you expect the courts to believe her then? And more so when it's a case like in a home, I mean, a lawyer like me would definitely not ask her, do you have the injuries? Do you have a proof of the medical report? Because they're supposed to be within the four walls of the home. You're not supposed to be taking photographs of every injury you take. And therefore, the courts are supposed to give her a lot of leeway, or the onus of proof kind of shifts when it comes to, you know, like that guilty till proven innocent, in cases like this where you cannot get evidence. So the strict rules of evidence shouldn't have applied. But the police disbelieve her, the woman and child disbelieve her. So, I mean, what is the atmosphere you're giving her to even start, to even think that she can get justice?
And they say, do you have a record? Her phone is snatched. She can't even call. So where is she going to record audio, visual, whatever?
Correct.
And this is what the police are asking. So these are all difficulties, but there is never a serious discussion on these issues. So we are saying these are mechanisms.
No, every case that is thrown out by the court, even let's assume, say this case is dismissed being false. When she's making a statement of false cases, I would like to know what is her basis. Has she analyzed the judgments and the court has clearly held false? Max, the court would say there is not enough proof for whatever reasons, that, and say there is not enough proof to hold. No, but it's false is making a clear categoric statement is false.
Correct.
And therefore, these kind of things are very disturbing for us as women, because we tell the women when they come there, we don't need proof. The courts is not going to look for proof. Your word is your proof.
Exactly.
So, because like, I mean, who else is there?
I mean, way back, that's what the
And in a
DGP said. The protocol is all about
in
this.
a patriarchal society, she's already in her husband's home and her mother-in-law's there. She has no one of hers. So, what kind of witnesses you will get?
You know, women who come to us, they are not interested in the cases, or they want the violence to stop.
Right.
Now we are saying go to the police, go to the court, they're saying do anything, stop the violence.
They're not even interested in separating from their husband.
They just want you come speak to
Mostly
the
not
husband.
also.
Right.
Speak to the husband.
And I think
tell
that
him
this
to
is
stop.
only crime wherein the victim is forced to stay with the perpetrator or abuser.
Yes.
Okay. Otherwise, no
Under the same
other
roof.
situation you can't think when the victim stays
But I think
with the
this
abuser.
intervention is most important to stop the crime. Like you say, they'll say go and speak. And what the like most of our women, like when they have gone to the police station and the man has been called and all, and the way the police talk or the other agencies talk, in the end the woman comes out a loser, and they talk so nicely to the husband and they say, okay, you should adjust, taka gara hoiti taka cha korun di, tu taka bore kor, then he will treat you well. So the entire onus of the relationship is put on the woman, you know, so it doesn't stop, and then the thing happens more.
Right.
So I think the intervention strategies need to be worked
out. Arunji, where do we go from here, in the sense that we have outlined very serious issues, and sensitivity, I think, is the core of this. The foundation of this whole thing is sensitivity, and the fact that there is no display of this compassion which we are all looking at. There is no empathy. Sensitivity is one thing, but there is no empathy. The system is devoid of empathy. Now, the point is, of course, all of you all in your individual capacities make interventions as you think fit. But the point is that where do we begin? If we are looking at solutions, then we have to begin at some point where the government is involved and the government is committed. Should we start with WCD? Should we start with the police? Should we start with the chief minister? There has to be some meeting ground on this.
Since I'm a student of law, okay, and I feel is that if we follow the law itself, the protection of women from domestic violence, if we implement it, as Caroline was saying, is that implement it properly, I think is that half of the problem will be solved.
Right.
Okay. Wherein there is a
no, we all agree it's not being implemented properly. Now, what do we do now?
What we want is that, as my other panelists are also saying, that we want a full-time protection officer, and the protection officer who has some kind of background in social work and law.
Right.
Like in our neighboring state, okay, Maharashtra, where we are having the social worker deputed as full-time protection officer with necessary infrastructure.
No, but as we also know that this is very rightful demand has been in the air for a very long time. All right-thinking people have been raising it at various forums across the years. So the issue that it is like you're banging your head against a wall for almost 10 years and nothing is happening, and we are doing the same thing again. Unfortunately, the point here is that ultimately, if there is no result, then is there a way out by actually approaching the court by way of a historic
So
PIL?
we have done the first step.
Yes.
We have done the first step on 23rd when we had the meeting and nearly 150 women were there.
Right.
And during the discussion, it came is that one of the major failure, okay, of getting any kind of redressal is not having full-time protection officer.
Right.
We have petitioned, okay, the State Legal Service Authority because Honorable Judge Vijay Amare was there and she promised before everyone that you write to us, we will take it up.
Right.
So ours has written to the State Legal Service Authority and also written to Chairperson Women's Commission, Director Women and Child Welfare Department and both the collector because they are also supposed to implement.
Right.
So we have demanded on one side of having full-time protection officer with necessary infrastructure. One, do a survey in Goa and to get an understanding as to what is the magnitude of the problem. And third, have one-stop crisis center at taluka level.
But if this is not being sorted out by the government meaning the secretariat and departments, why can't we start, or why can't you all start by just having a meeting with the two collectors? Ultimately, this does not require a big policy change. The collector is authorized to do this. In fact, just an executive order by the district magistrate saying we'll have a full-fledged protection home is enough. This does not require a cabinet decision.
The collectors are
anyway.
also so busy.
Yeah.
If you want to get an appointment with the collector, you have to wait there.
Right.
Because the
That's
collector
true.
has
That's not
100
the
and
point.
yeah. No, I'm just saying. So collectors, also, every authority has got responsibility. The point is of implementation. So
No, I understand that.
Only correction
I'm
here is
only
the
looking
correction.
at practical
appoint,
solutions.
to appoint a protection officer,
Will be the
okay, it
government
has to be the government.
because of the finances.
Right.
Finances.
Right.
It is the government. The collector doesn't have the power.
Correct.
Okay, it is the government which
See,
has to
again,
do
what's
the-
happening is, see,
One
we
option
are
can be PIL.
No,
No,
what Sujay is saying,
what-
basically we are demanding.
we are going around in
and then
circles
we
with the right
know-
intention,
Yes, but then
without any
Focus.
proper
Focus.
response.
As to
See,
where?
your intentions are absolutely spot on. Your intention, dedication, and the struggle is absolutely spot on. But the point here is that too many years have passed, so there has to be something more concrete than that to enforce. Right now, the point is, see, requests and demands will not happen. There has to be an enforcement, and if that enforcement has to come from another pillar of democracy like the judiciary, so be it. That's all I'm saying. Because the point here is, because ultimately all the doors have been knocked. So there can be one final push where there is a proper representation and you meet the government for one last
Only
time.
work with
Whatever.
the judiciary.
But the only thing is that ultimately a public interest litigation only will add to it, where there's a proper directive from the court. Look, these are steps that need to be taken, and
an audit of all the services has to be done.
That's a
which is
separate
what-
issue, but
yeah.
regarding
Correct.
protection officer, there is a need for judiciary.
That
to
is
intervene.
that the
Okay,
government has to take a decision. No? So that's the minister who
no,
has to.
if the
who
government
has
is
to-
not taking the
Government is not
decision,
taking
there
it.
has to be a direction.
Very
Yeah.
I mean, my point, the issue is
Yeah,
a lot
I
of
agree.
mountains have been moved in Goa because of legal
of
intervention.
Legal intervention. That's
You,
true.
you know, whether you would look at the tiger reserve, of course, that also there is a struggle. But whether you look at a tiger
Yes,
reserve or
so
look at any,
yeah.
you look at double tracking, you look at mining. I mean, you look at many such cases. The judicial intervention only has done
It's
this.
sad
and
that
rightly so.
actually
Yeah.
that
Correct.
for every little thing you got to approach the judiciary
Correct.
for things which actually it's like so clear in the act. Like you go to them and say, please implement the act. That
Correct.
is, you know.
Before we conclude, if you all can share some experiences that you may have encountered or known from good practices of good practices in other states. All three of you can just share anything that you know about. any
Like
of
I was discussing about this protection officer,
Yes.
the thing, and what I was told by Tata Institute is that they have a special women's cell.
In which
At
state?
the
In
police
Tata
station,
Institute of Social Sciences in Maharashtra.
Ah, okay.
And wherein at the special women's cell, the social worker has been appointed as protection officer.
Right.
So what is happening there is that any victim of domestic violence is going there. So because the protection officer is sitting at the police station itself, so FIR gets registered, and the other kind of intervention, whether it is a protection order, whether it is relief, whether it is compensation, whether it is retrieval of property, okay, medical, okay, the custody of the child, all these things gets decided then and there.
Right. Right.
The same pattern can be adopted in Goa also.
Right.
You know what is happening in Goa, like the NGO has to be there, the social worker has to come. but the corruption is so steeped in the police station. So now the police will get a specific person from an NGO. There is a setting between that person and the police. There is money which I'm saying these women come back and tell us there's money that is exchanged. The accused, then the husband and wife will get together and they will report how much money has been exchanged and just to get out of this situation, how this particular case has been filed. So, you know, we are battling a lot of odds and corruption is one of them. Secondly is the same people who are supposed to give services, like police, lot of complaints of police demanding sexual favors. The minute they know the woman is vulnerable, they call up.
This is your experience.
Experience. I'm talking
Not only police, the lawyers also.
Yeah. And,
the lawyers who are providing
extortion of money, and also nowadays a lot of people, you know, also there are people who say we will help you. One Saturday we have a meeting. One lady came and said somebody took 6,000 rupees from me, saying that I will get you a lawyer, I will get you this, I'll get you that. Nothing happened, and the woman continues to be abused. Yeah. So there are lots of things happening, and all these require, you know, what you call it. We need to address them, and some police and all we have taken tasks, but
Karen, in your experience in court and dealing with cases, what would be the percentage of convictions that you all have managed, and in those cases, ultimately, I mean, does the convicted male in the family, the issue that, I mean, do these convictions play out? Is there imprisonment? Is there serving of sentence?
Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act, if that's the act you're talking about, there is no convictions. It's basically an act which is another civil law which gives you protection, it gives you residence, it gives you custody, maintenance, compensation.
No, but if somebody is indulged in domestic violence which has led to physical harm,
so then there will have to be a separate FIR lodge, and that would be the police and police.
Correct. So let's talk about those cases.
So those ones, in terms of the very difficult, because, you know, like, I mean, I'm also a criminal lawyer, largely do criminal law.
Correct.
And I'm always bemoaning the fact that the, you know, like the police investigation is really, you know, needs so much.
Absolutely. As we have seen in so many of these cases.
In so many. So if they start, like even the Vasco case, you know, if they start with the premise that, oh, this is a, you know,
gas cylinder blast,
then they're not going to look for the evidence.
Correct.
Like, I mean, in all the cases still now, do you have but they will not do it, A, because of course time constraints. Secondly, is there is no designated criminal police officers only for that offence.
Right.
So hence, as you said, forget about not attaching the phone in this particular case. But in many cases, like for example, they will say drug dealers, you know, they'll say big drug dealer, they'll attach the phone, but the phone is never analyzed.
Right.
I mean, if you are wanting to really catch more than check every phone call, if there are 10 phone calls to a particular person, then find out his record. I mean, but there is just no backup. There is still no do not cross line. There is still, forensics is pretty nascent. At least after so much of demand, we have a forensic laboratory, but I don't think we do. I'm not too sure if they do still DNA testing and things like this. So it's very nascent, and I, you know, like, so like, I think actually getting convictions is really
and our experience is the free legal aid lawyers, a very sad story. Like, they don't give you know, due importance to the victim. Many lawyers demand money. This is the feedback that is coming, and then they go on postponing the cases. They say sometimes it really happens, we know, but
these lawyers come into the picture for these cases.
For any, you can get a free legal aid lawyer for anything, and
for domestic violence, not for anything, but women,
for domestic violence,
women, it's free.
Yeah,
so they go, then we have to apply for a lawyer. There are women who are changing lawyers afterwards, and they're saying they are not listening. And what happened? These people don't get the money paid to them by the government, whoever is less. So they are constantly also asking for money.
Who, the lawyers?
The lawyers. And then if they say when we have taken up with the legal authority, they'll say, you bring the matter to us. Now they know if we go to them, my case is going to be again botched up. So they are also again caught in a trap. So without naming people, can we put systems in place? Is there accountability? Can we put these things in check? So this is
have to be trainings, because even see, under the Domestic Violence Act, they put a time limit. They've said, but they cannot say should be completed within a period of 6 months. As far as, what's the word used, as as far as possible should. But where the cases, Sujay, like I mean, so disheartening because a woman comes, so a case which the Act says 6 month maximum, really drags on for years. But I would say, let's not only be totally negative. I am telling you from, like this, perhaps to end on a positive note, that we have got some really good orders. We have got ex parte orders, meaning even without the husband coming in. The judges, of course, all domestic violence cases have to be handled by female judges. Female judges have been very sensitive. Even sometimes through a long shot, you know, like without kind of evidence, direct custody of children. For maintenance, they have been pretty good in granting maintenance. Only at the time is after the maintenance is granted, then implementation is a bit of hassle because, of course, the husbands dodge to pay the money. But it's not all bad in the sense that we have got very sensitive judges. Who have been giving, I mean, considering the circumstances, wherein you get a form which is so badly.
Caroline is lucky. We are waiting for some cases.
You know
in
what
fact,
happens?
our experiences has been
our experience has been
that
bad
once
because
the girl
people come to us.
once the girl complains and decides to fight for justice, her journey of harassment starts. Before that is only harassment by the
would
family.
be one of the things that I would
but
say
after that, the harassment from different agencies, the service provider starts. That has been our
courts
experience.
have, for example, there's that form. It's called it's been so badly filled by somebody in the BDO, half of the column.
If the BDO fills it at all.
If at all he fills it.
Correct.
But the courts have gone beyond and passed orders which say, let her not suffer because of a nil-filled form.
Right.
They've gone, I think, in some pretty much cases, ignored the fact of a form that is so badly
what
filled.
She is talking about, I don't know, time is not, talking about filling of the form. Imagine to get the form filled also, it is so difficult.
Yes.
And to get the form also. To get the form,
you need to first meet the BDO. Tell the BDO this is the case. The BDO has to be convinced. To meet the BDO itself, you make 3-4 rounds.
In the court.
And then only you can
understand.
go.
This is the
court is later. But to fill that form, you make minimum 4 to 5 visits.
The whole thing boils down to the harassment that starts after you report your harassment.
Harassment, correct.
And that is where the issue
starts from after that.
That is true, and it adds to the harassment.
Correct.
You know?
Okay, we'll just we have about 4 minutes left. All three of you can just give us about 10 to 15 seconds on essentially the way forward.
The way forward, I believe, is that full-time protection officer, one-stop crisis center at taluka level, and also the government should take over one-stop crisis center and run it.
Okay.
I would think that the government has to really believe that domestic violence is an issue, and if it really believes this, then all the departments should work in tandem, and all the statistics of whether domestic violence and other areas like mental health, etc., should be analyzed, and give like the backup for the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act, so that all the agencies can function, and so that the woman gets backup right at the time of the first case of domestic violence, so that it doesn't reach the stage of a death that can happen.
Sabina.
And adding to what they have said, I'll say yes. Besides this, I would say first thing is that intervention level has to be there, and so the police station or our counseling centers, the commission, all have to be active, and at every taluka or at every like when there is a distress call, it has to be attended. We are getting cases, calls are not being received, the woman is getting battered. Now by the time you register, and it's a long story, but first thing is the violence has to stop.
Right.
And I think that this is not happening. So immediate action for violence to stop, whether it is that 112, the helpline for women, and they call the women to the police station in the night. Somebody is getting battered in the night, you come, no transport is provided, the pink force which is there is not there for the woman to be reached back, and so we are further making the woman vulnerable. So this issue has to be addressed.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but we've touched upon a lot of important issues concerning domestic violence. All we have to say is that under this whole veneer of civilization and the educated and proper society that we have, if you scratch this surface and this veneer, you will come up with so many cases of hurt, battered, bruised and completely broken women going to sleep each night where the nightmare of her life is worse than any nightmare that she would have when she ultimately falls asleep. And what is ironical is that we pride ourselves as a country which focuses on the education of women to ensure that they can protect themselves and take care of all their rights and to live in the society as empowered human beings. But the point here is that what we see is that this education beyond a point even becomes useless if the system which should be empowering women who have this courage to take matters in their own hands and fight for justice does not seem to exist at all. From the BDOs to the protection officers to the police, and then finally to when matters reach the court. It's a long journey of struggle and harassment, which sometimes becomes even more painful than the physical beating and the abuse that women suffer. And what is even sadder as we hear this is that there are so many alarming statistics that are coming up that are Goa centric. As per the National Family Health Survey India Goa chapter, 20% of the women aged between 18 to 49 have experienced physical violence. 4% have experienced sexual violence. And now these are very alarming figures. And what is even worse is that we hear success stories in neighboring states, larger states, neighboring states, where the system is empowered, where the government departments, the SPs, the DMs and others are a part of the solution. In Goa, they don't seem to be part of the solution. People are very, very upset that they seem to be part of the problem rather than the solution. And you leave it ultimately to right-thinking NGOs and other organizations to fight this battle by themselves without any kind of support, without any funds, without any infrastructure. And as SABINA mentioned right at the very end, that when a woman goes to the police station and she is called at night, there is not even a transport to drop her back. That ultimately sums up the apathy and the absolute neglect that we have kind of unleashed on vulnerable women in Goa. Ultimately, the way out has to be, and with all doors, not all knocks on doors not being answered, probably a full-fledged, all-encompassing PIL addressing all these issues, which will ultimately lead to proper directive from the court, might be just one solution. It is sad that it has come to this, but to prevent this, and I feel that this through this discussion, the government must wake up and understand that ultimately you have to take action, because God forbid a day will come when your own home will see this eruption of this vulnerability in a manner that you've least expected, and that is when it will hurt the most, unfortunately. So before it gets further late than what it is, and I think everybody should come together as a society, the government, people, NGOs and everybody else, to ensure that our women no longer get bruised and abused and completely broken in the manner that they are at this point of time. I thank all the panelists for giving their views and insights, and hopefully a discussion like this will allow us to have a little better Goa for our women.